Chapter 26. The Talisman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Lizzie Driver. The Talisman by Sir Walter Scott. Chapter 26. The tears I shed must ever fall. I weep not for an absent swain, for times may happier hours recall, and parted lovers meet again. I weep not for the silent dead, their pains are past, their sorrows o'er. And those that loved their steps must tread, when death shall join to part no more. But worse than absence, worse than death, she wept her lover's sullied frame, and, fired with all the pride of birth, she wept her soldier's injured name. The frank and bold voice of Richard was heard in joyous gratulation. "Thomas de Vaux, stout Tom of the Gills, by the head of King Henry, thou art welcome to me as ever was flask of wine to a jolly toper. I should scarce have known how to order my battle array, unless I had thy bulky form in mine eyes as a landmark to form my ranks upon. We shall have blows anon, Thomas, if the saints be gracious to us, and had we fought in thine absence, I would have looked to hear of thy being found hanging upon an elder tree. I should have borne my disappointment with more Christian patience, I trust," said Thomas de Vaux, "than to have died the death of an apostle. But I thank your Grace for my welcome, which is the more generous, as it respects a banquet of blows, of which, saving your pleasure, you are ever too apt to engross the larger share. But here have I brought one to whom your Grace will, I know, give a yet warmer welcome." The person who now stepped forward to make obeisance to Richard was a young man of low stature and slight form. His dress was as modest as his figure was unimpressive, but he bore on his bonnet a gold buckle, with a gem, the lustre of which could only be rivalled by the brilliancy of the eye which the bonnet shaded. It was the only striking feature in his countenance, but when once noticed, it ever made a strong impression on the spectator. About his neck there hung in a scarf of sky blue silk a wrest, as it was called, that is, the key with which a harp is tuned, and which was of solid gold. This personage would have kneeled reverently to Richard, but the monarch raised him in joyful haste, pressed him to his bosom warmly, and kissed him on either side of the face. "Blondel de Nesle!" he exclaimed joyfully. "Welcome from Cyprus, my king of minstrels! Welcome to the King of England, who rates not his own dignity more highly than he does thine. I have been sick, man, and, by my soul, I believe it was for lack of thee. For, were I half way to the gate of heaven, methinks thy strains could call me back. And what news, my gentle master, from the land of the lyre? Anything fresh from the trouveurs of Provence? Anything from the minstrels of merry Normandy? Above all, hast thou thyself been busy? But I need not ask thee, thou canst not be idle if thou wouldest. Thy noble qualities are like a fire burning within, and compel thee to pour thyself out in music and song." "Something I have learned, and something I have done, noble king," answered the celebrated Blondel, with a retiring modesty which all Richard's enthusiastic admiration of his skill had been unable to banish. "We will hear thee, man, we will hear thee instantly," said the king. Then, touching Blondel's shoulder kindly, he added, "That is, if thou art not fatigued with thy journey, for I would sooner ride my best horse to death than injure a note in thy voice." "My voice is, as ever, at the service of my royal patron," said Blondel. "But your Majesty," he added, looking at some papers on the table, "seems more importantly engaged, and the hour waxes late." "Not a whit, man, not a whit, my dearest Blondel. I did but sketch an array of battle against the Saracens, a thing of a moment, almost as soon done as the routing of them." "Methinks, however," said Thomas de Vaux, "it were not unfit to inquire what soldiers your Grace hath to array. I bring reports on that subject from Ascalon." "Thou art a mule, Thomas," said the king, "a very mule for dullness and obstinacy. Come, nobles, a hall, a hall! Range ye around him.
give Blondel the tabouret. Where is his harp-bearer? Or, soft, lend him my harp, his own may be damaged by the journey."
"I would your grace take my report," said Thomas de Vaux. "I have ridden far, and have more list to my bed than to have my ears tickled."
"Thy ears tickled!" said the King. "That must be with a woodcock's feather, and not with sweet sounds. Hark thee, Thomas, do thine ears know the singing of Blondel from the braying of an ass?"
"In faith, my liege," replied Thomas, "I cannot well say; but setting Blondel out of the question, who is a born gentleman, and doubtless of high acquirements, I shall never, for the sake of your Grace's question, look on a minstrel but I shall think upon an ass."
"And might not your manners," said Richard, "have accepted me, who am a gentle born as well as Blondel, and, like him, a guild brother of the joyous science?"
"Your Grace should remember," said De Vaux, smiling, "that 'tis useless asking for manners from a mule."
"Most truly spoken," said the King, "and an ill conditioned animal thou art. But come hither, master mule, and be unloaded, that thou mayest get thee to thy litter without any music being wasted upon thee. Meantime do thou, good brother of Salisbury, go to our consort's tent, and tell her that Blondel has arrived, with his budget fraught with the newest minstrelsy. Bid her come hither instantly, and do thou escort her, and see that our cousin Edith Plantagenet remain not behind." His eye then rested for a moment on the Nubian, with that expression of doubtful meaning which his countenance usually displayed when he looked at him. "Ha! our silent and secret messenger returned. Stand up, slave, behind the back of De Neville, and thou shalt hear presently sounds which will make thee bless God that he afflicted thee rather with dumbness than deafness." So saying, he turned from the rest of the company towards De Vaux, and plunged instantly into the military details which that baron laid before him. About the time that the Lord of Gilsland had finished his audience, a messenger announced that the Queen and her attendants were approaching the royal tent. "A flask of wine, ho!" said the King, "of old King Isaac's long-saved Cyprus, which we won when we stormed Famagosta. Fill to the stout Lord of Gilsland. Gentles, a more careful and faithful servant never had any prince."
"I am glad," said Thomas de Vaux, "that your Grace finds the mule a useful slave, though his voice be less musical than horsehair or wire."
"What, thou canst not yet digest that quip of the mule?" said Richard. "Wash it down with a brimming flagon, man, or thou wilt choke upon it. Why so? Well pulled. And now I will tell thee, thou art a soldier as well as I, and we must brook each other's jests in the hall as each other's blows in the tourney, and love each other the harder we hit. By my faith, if thou didst not hit me as hard as I did thee in our late encounter, thou gavest all thy wit to the thrust. But here lies the difference betwixt thee and Blondel. Thou art but my comrade, I might say my pupil, in the art of war. Blondel is my master in the science of minstrelsy and music. To thee I permit the freedom of intimacy, to him I must do reverence as to my superior in his art. Come, man, be not peevish, but remain and hear our glee." "To see your Majesty in such a cheerful mood," said the Lord of Gilsland, "by my faith, I could remain till Blondel had achieved the great romance of King Arthur, which lasts for 3 days." "We will not tax your patience so deeply," said the King. "But see, yonder glare of torches without shows that our consort approaches. Away to receive her, man, and win thyself grace in the brightest eyes of Christendom. Nay, never stop to adjust thy cloak. See, thou hast let Neville come between the wind and the sails of thy galley." "He was never before me in the field of battle," said De Vaux, not greatly pleased to see himself anticipated by the more active service of the chamberlain. "No, neither he or any one went before thee there, my good Tom of the Gills," said the King, "unless it was ourself, now and then." "Ay, my liege," said De Vaux, "and let us do justice to the unfortunate. the unhappy